Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times, these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
Okay. My name is Timothy W. Scarbrough, Wayne. Years of service. I was 31 years and the rank of captain when I retired. I'm 63. I was born in Kansas and moved here when I was 14 and been here ever since. I'm not related to any firefighters. Before I joined the fire department, I was actually a machinist, a tool and die maker, and I actually packed up and was ready to go to Oklahoma and do that job there when I got the call for being a fireman. My mother-in-law, she made me become a firefighter. She told me about a job in Greensboro and said I needed to apply. Went in, I had to take a test, I had to do an agility test, go through a background check, and then they appointed me. Starting salary was $412, I believe, monthly. In my training class, we had 21. We had 3 of them from Reidsville, so we had 18 Greensboro firefighters. And I remember about everybody there. I mean, you know, you had Weaver, you had Mabe, let's see here, Jeff Alton, you know, there was 18 of them, so you know, we had many of them. I was on the red team, and the red team, we did a lot of pranks and we got in trouble a lot. I remember we got the captains, actually had captain and chief, you know, we were doing sprinklers that day, and Paul Brooks, yes, we got him and Chief Coble up there and soaked them, and it was funny was the commander, he kept walking away from us. He knew what was going on, so we didn't get him. We were hoping to get him, but we didn't. I think even through training, doing something special in training, and when we got out on the line, in training, I felt like, you know, within days of that, the training we did, that I knew I was going to go in, save lives, and protect property. When I got out on the line, especially, you know, every day you go in and you're saving lives, you know, fighting fire, medical, that kind of thing. And, you know, it just seemed like I knew that was my calling. I knew it was a special thing. Not everybody could do it. And so I think that was the special thing about being a firefighter. My first station was Station 10, and that was the crazy thing in training, is they come to you in training and they tell everybody their first assignments, and everybody was getting you know, nice engine companies, engine 8, engine 7, engine 4, and I was the last one to call, and they said, Tim Scarbrough, you're going to truck 2. And I went, Are you kidding me? I thought that was the worst assignment that I could have ever gotten. It turned out being one of the best assignments. I was with Station 10 for over 6 years on Truck 2, and my captain, he was Wayne Weatherman, and then I had driver of Charlie McCoy and Moose. I can't remember his name, but they always called him Moose because he was a big boy. He was the one that was shocked on the ladder. But it was a great time. I mean, we fought fire, and I did more firefighting on that truck than anybody did in the city. Wayne Weatherman, first of all, he hurt his back and was down in Atlanta for about the first month that I was assigned to him. But when he got back, Captain Weatherman was 6'4", about 250 pounds. I was 5'5", 170 pounds. And they used to, it looked like, I don't know if you ever seen the commercial Kibbles and Bits, but the big bulldog walking and the little dog jumping over top of him. Well, that's what they called me and him, Kibbles and Bits, because you know I was ball of fire wanting to go, and he had to pull the reins on me several times. You know, he had to call me to the side and say, "Hey, you need to stay with me," because a lot of times I would throw my air pack on and go on, and he didn't like that at first. As far as all the stations that I was assigned to, Station 10, I was on ladder 2. I went to Station 11, was on ladder 1. Then I went back to 10 for about 6 years. Then I was transferred to Station 4. Station 4, when I was assigned there, I mean, I didn't like it. I said, why was I sent here? I didn't want to be here. And it became one of my favorite stations because we rode all the time. I had a great captain, Captain Pierman, and you know, I got to see a lot of stuff in the streets. And then when we went to Station 5, I stayed there 12 years. I was on all 3 trucks. I was on High 5 and confined space. You know, that was my highlight of my career. I enjoyed that because, you know, the guys, we got real close. We were very close. We trained together. We played together. You know, we fought fire together. You know, I trusted them. They trusted me. You know, we did a lot of stuff that made me a better man. At Station 5, some of the things that, specialized things that we did and some of the calls we rode on, I did get deployed, but it wasn't actually to the coast, it was actually to the mountains. It was in 2004 when I think it was Fran and Ivan came through, and it was like a 500-year flood that went through there. The devastation was unbelievable what water does to it. The first day we got there, or that evening, we spent 15 hours in wetsuits in trucks going around, and we went out and saved several people. They were light rescues. They weren't real hard rescues. Then we came back, and then we spent the rest of, I think we were there about a week assessing, going around searching, assessing buildings, making sure everybody was okay. And the devastation there was heart-wrenching. I still think of that today. I didn't know that they do tomatoes up there, and I've never seen so many tomatoes pushed through houses and stuff. It was just unbelievable what the water force would do. Our rescue, one rescue that really catches, you know, I remember is it was out on I-40. A tractor trailer had come on top of a car, and the woman that was entrapped in there actually had the semi-truck's front tire sitting on her head, pinned her in with a truck. We couldn't move her. We couldn't get her in or out. It took us 45 minutes to get her free. We had to finally get a heavy wrecker come in and pick it up because we tried different things and nothing would work. But it was amazing that she was not hurt. We seen her about 6 months later. they gave us an award for it, and she came in and gave us that award, presented it, and she was fine. It was a miracle for her. That was one wreck that I remember. We went on, many wrecks, but that was one of the unique wrecks. Well, the first nickname was Kibbles and Bits with Captain. But then through my career, people couldn't say my name Scarbrough, so everybody started calling me Scar, and that stuck with me throughout my career. That's all they used to call me, a Scar. I have several hobbies and businesses. I did photography for a while. I did get out of it. Now I do woodworking. I've got a sawmill, retired up in Wentworth, and do a sawmill and build little trinkets and things like that. As far as pranks out in the service, there was no pranks. Nobody played. I'm just kidding. Yes, there was. I almost lost I thought I was going to lose my job. One prank that we did at Station 5. It wasn't me that did it, but Chip Severs and Tercino decided Chip had a marker grenade from the war that he was in his bumper, and I was standing by the door, and they come by laughing at me, and I just glanced down and saw something green. I didn't know what it was. Well, there was a firefighter in there using the bathroom, so they commenced to going in there, and they opened it up, popped it up, and threw it in there. Well, it's a big bang. I mean, it's like a shotgun. And then the smoke was unbelievable. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, I mean, literally. And the firefighter came out, I don't know if I can say it, but he came out with his pants down to his ankles saying, "I'm going to the chief. I want the chief now." Well, I talked him down, told him, "Let me handle this." And so it took a long time to get that smoke out. It looked like a fire. And then we found out later on that when people started sweating in their uniform, this was in the locker room, all the uniforms turned yellow. And anytime they got wet or anything, they'd start having a yellow tint. So logistics had to change out a lot of clothes. But I did think I was going to lose my job that day. Yeah, I joined the union, I think around 93, somewhere like that, and was in the union until I retired, and even after that for a little bit. I still get notices from them. I tried to go to all the union celebrations. I did a lot of the photography for them at one time, and participated in everything that tried to as much as they did. Yes, our crew ate and lived together. We cooked every day, 3 meals, or 2 meals, and we usually had breakfast in the mornings too. We usually leftovers, but if you didn't have that thing cooked at 12 noon and 5 o'clock on the dot, you were in trouble, because that's when firefighters ate. I mean, that was a law. The value in cooking and eating together, I think, it brings you together. It brings you as a family. I know when I first came on, we were brothers and sisters. I mean, we did everything together on and off the job site. When we were on our days off, we'd do together. We'd work together. We trusted each other. It was a lot in trust and protection. Nowadays, the firefighters, I think they're too busy. They have too much on their plate, and they're not what I say brotherly love. I believe that they want to protect each other and everything, but I don't know that they have the same camaraderie as we did back in. I came from early firefighting where that's all we did was firefight. We didn't do medical or anything. To now, we did mostly medical and hardly any firefighting. So I've been through that transition, and I can see, it's a lot better back then. I cooked at Station 5 for 2 years. every day. Well, a sign cook, when they asked, I told them I would cook, that, you know, I didn't have to do certain cleaning, and I didn't ever have to clean the dishes and all. And I got to cook what I wanted to cook. I usually asked them what they wanted, but I had a few dishes that I would cook, tried to mix it up, but, you know, I just enjoyed cooking. It never took me away from training, so it was enjoyable. But most stations, we took turns cooking. Before I did that, we took turns cooking, either by shift or by truck or just individuals. And you know, you get in little bickers. We have food fights. I remember the kitchen being destroyed one time, you know, and the captains let us do it. We were throwing eggs, we were throwing flour, we threw every kind of thing you could think of. And when we got done, the captain said, "All right, now it's time to clean up." And we did. We cleaned up, and then we went and took a shower, and we were ready for fighting. Not really. The favorite dish that everybody wanted me to cook was enchiladas. I learned that from Brian Kincaid. He taught me how to make that, and they love that. So I had to make that a bunch. Yeah, as far as living quarters, you know, I've been in both a large room with, you know, several beds, and I've also been in cubicles. And I think when they took the large room away and put you in a cubicle, it isolated you from each other. I remember, you know, laying at night going, am I going to be able to sleep because this guy's snoring? And then you go and you throw something at him, wake him up, he'll quit snoring, then you can go to sleep. Or, you know, you laid there in bed sometimes and watched TV and just, you know, you talked. It was like having a slumber party every night. We had a good time. You know, there was a lot of pranks going on in the bedroom. That was one of the main places. I remember one prank that we did on Bobby Taylor. He snored bad, and I laid next to him. Well, Brooks Langley said, "Well, let's do something." So we took a floor jack, put it up under his bed, and I was laying next to him. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, Bobby's over there snoring like crazy. So Brooks woke me up, and it took me 45 minutes, but I took that floor jack and jacked him up. And I jacked him up about 45-degree angle. He didn't fall out of the bed, which I'm glad he didn't. He'd broke a hip. But he quit snoring, and he was tired the next morning. He couldn't figure out why he was trying to stay on the bed so much that it pretty much kept him awake. And we finally told him what happened, but that was one. But now the having the cubicles was nice sometimes because you could get away. I mean, when you're in an old fire station with one room, it was hard to get away from guys when you needed to. But the cubicles, I'd say that was the only reason I'd like to have them, is I could get away from them and you know, be to myself sometimes. A whole lot less. I mean, you know, on our downtime in the station, we had downtime. We could clean cars. You know, we could work on things. We did a lot of projects. Now they're so busy, you know, training, and you know, they had to have 240 hours, but they still, even beyond the 240 hours and 6 or 8 drills they had to have, they would do, you know, over that. So they would be prepared, because it is a more dangerous today than it was back then, because you have different chemicals. Everything's made out of chemical instead of just pure wood and natural fibers. So you have to really understand things like that. And without the downtimes when we had our best times. I mean, we could enjoy each other, watch TV, work on somebody's car. I remember working on people's car all day and all night. You know, 11, 12 o'clock at night with flashlights trying to finish it up so he could go home the next day. So, and they just can't do that anymore. The smartphone and the iPhone, I think, has ruined civilization, actually. But with firefighters, you know, they're on their phones all the time. They're not communicating with each other. They're not spending time with each other. It's you know, when I retired, you know, we had the phones and everything, and everybody be over there messing with the phones and stuff, and wasn't you know, getting involved with each other and they were doing their job, but they weren't, you know, they just weren't together anymore.
I agree with that.
Well, the differences in today and years past in families getting together and having cookouts and stuff, I don't think they do that as much anymore. Just because they don't know each other as much. You know, when we first came on, I remember when I first came on, I moved in December. I came in July, and I moved in December. Everybody at that station, I mean, within 6 months, they had their trucks there. They moved me. They helped me move. They helped me set up. You know, that's just unreal. You know, knowing somebody for 6 months, and you do that, spend your whole day helping somebody. Yeah, as far as the knowing people in this department, that's true. When I came on, I think it was a little over 200 firefighters. Now it's over 600, I believe. No, I mean, when I was on as a captain, people would come up and say, "Hey, Captain Scarbrough," I'm going, I have no clue who this guy was. But it's still, I think, you know, within the company itself, they're there for the job. They're not there for the career. They're not there to socialize. And again, the cell phones is a lot of the problem there. You know, I never thought of as far as when a retired firefighter visits the station and wondering, you know, why people don't come up and just talk to you and stuff. I didn't realize that until I retired. And when I went through, when I go to a fire station, it's kind of just to reminisce, to get back into, you know, do I still have a family here? And when you walk through the door and you know nobody and they just kind of ignore you, it's hard on a retired firefighter. You know, my suggestion is, you know, stop what you're doing. It's not that important to sit there and listen to some old guy talk about some old story that he had one day, and you know, you might catch a little glimpse of something that you either learned or just you really enjoy. You know, it's sad to know that we're so busy that we can't take care of our grandparents, as I would call the old retired firefighters. You know, these interviews that you're doing today, I think, is great. When you called me up and asked me to do this, it brought back a lot of memories. It brought back a lot of things that, you know, I'd forgotten, kind of put away. I'm busy, not thinking about, and I got down and, you know, I was reading the questions and reminiscing of the things we used to do, and it brought back a lot of good memories, and you know, kind of makes me feel good at what I've done in life. Oh yes, I remember my first call, and it was my first call and fire was the same thing, was Stone's Throw, a fully involved apartment building with I think 6 or 8 units, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was 87 degrees. I was sweating when I got out of bed and got in the truck, and we fought that all night. And I don't, you know, some of these shows you see where a firefighter rushes in and picks up a dummy or a mannequin and thinking it's a real. Well, that actually happened to me. Me and Charlie McCoy went in for search and rescue in one of the units, and I found a crib, and there was a baby doll in there. Well, when I first saw it, my heart fell. I thought, oh God, I got a dead baby here. So I picked it up and realized, thank God I didn't take it out thinking I was going to save something, but it was just a doll that was in a crib. But yeah, that fire that night was a hot one. Captain's Walk fire, I was there the next day. We actually went in and helped 3 young women get a lot of stuff out of their apartment before they called us out of it. Yeah, the campus walk fire was a really a hard thing for a lot of firefighters, because especially the ones that went in and picked up the ones that had perished in there. And but it was kind of a blessing because, like I said, we had 3 girls, college girls, that kind of adopted us. They even made a sign that hung up at Station 5 for a long time, thanking us and telling how great we were. But you know, we went in and got some heirlooms of one of the girls' grandmother's ring and some musical things. So, you know, I was proud of that. But that was a devastating fire. As far as medical calls that we run, you know, when I first started, we didn't, the engine or especially the ladder company, we never run a medical call. But after a few years, it started becoming a normal thing. When I left, it was 87% of our calls were medical calls. I think it's essential. I think it's the best thing that we ever could do. I know a lot of them would say no, that's not what we're there for, but I think it saved many lives, because we normally were the first on. We were within 5 minutes of you know, the call, and we saved a lot of people. I enjoyed doing them because I knew that you're going in on probably the worst day of somebody's life, because they did call 911, and you're, first of all, you're trying to settle them down, and then you know, treat them and get them to the hospital or whatever we need to do to make them feel better. So you know, I think medical calls are essential to the fire service. Yeah, some of the significant events that I had through my career was one, stone's throw. The next fire I had right after that was a couple of weeks, was a house fire that the sun set the man on fire, and he was out actually in the yard burning. Not to laugh at that, but we went in and fought the fire, and then somebody noticed embers over there burning, and he, you know, and that was significant. But one that we had was truck 2. We went to a train wreck out on Chimney Rock that we had to wade through about 50 or 500 gallons of diesel fuel, where the engineer was killed. They sent me in as search to search the engine itself to see if we could find them in there, and it was unsuccessful. I was trying to think of some other fires that I was on. A lot of the one that really came back to me was the Greensboro College fire. When we pulled up, we were called, little smoke, light smoke showing. It was pretty much just a trash can on fire, a little bit of contents. We walked down, could see it, everything was good to go. And so I had the advance line, and so I stopped and I fed it back, and they were supposed to bring me in a feeder line, and everybody left. Well, as soon as everybody left, it flashed. It didn't flash over, but the smoke dropped down below eye level, and I'm in there sitting there waiting for them. Can hear the fire crackling. No, everything was quiet. I couldn't hear anything outside, and I'm thinking, do I need to go? Do I need to stay? You know, I don't know what this fire's doing. And finally, they came in with the feeder line, and I felt a whole lot better that I had water. And then me and 2 other guys advanced in and put it out. But that was kind of creepy, because you could sit there and just thinking, you could hear that fire, you know, getting bigger and bigger, crackling, and you don't know, should I leave? Should I stay? You know, I didn't have a hose to follow out. You know, so it was kind of a hard decision for me in that moment. Other fires, I mean, I remember one fire that was real hot on Princess Anne, and it was when we had the worst ice storm in Greensboro, I believe. It took us a little while to get to the house because we had to cut trees that were broken into the road, clear a path to get there. And once we got there, it was a fire. The house was pretty engulfed, but it still had some potential of safe. So we went in, we got upstairs, and it was actually, we didn't realize it, but it was like a furnace. It had wooden walls all the way around it. And we got up in there. I mean, that was probably the hottest fire that I'd ever been in. So during and after 9/11, that was a tough one for me because, you know, I did feel for the people that went in there. I remember exactly where I was. I was supposed to finish up a job. I was off duty, finish up a job, and I sat there and had the TV on, just kind of listening to the news, and it came on, and I was there 3 hours later. You know, I called my wife, told her to go get the kids, get home, stay there, do not do anything. You know, I was feared that a lot of stuff was going to happen, and then afterwards, you know, I wanted so bad to go up and help. I think many firemen, probably I'd say over half the department would love to have been up there to go in and help those guys out, because, you know, that was devastating to know that 343 of our brothers perished in that fire. And but that's how our team, the USAR team at Station 5 was developed, is after 9/11, they gave us funding to buy all kinds of equipment, do a lot of training. We brought all the teams together, the high angle confined space, the structural collapse, and water rescue. We brought all these teams together, and we all stationed at Station 5. And yeah, after 9/11, FEMA came in and had a lot of money and developed teams. They had FEMA teams, which is the federal state. We were at the state level, the USAR team. So anytime there was a building collapse, any type of disaster, we had sections of the state that we covered, and that we would go in and you know, act under the states. We went into Sanford, and they had a tornado that was a F4, and we went in after and assessed trying to find victims and stuff. And I was fortunate or unfortunate, I don't know which one you want to look at it, but my team, we went in this one section where a man was killed, and the devastation was really high. Well, we walked up on this trailer, and these folks were out there searching like crazy, calling the name of a dog, and they asked us, "Is there a way that we could help you? I mean, you could help us find our dog?" And I said, "Ma'am, we're here for human lives right now. We can't. I apologize." We walked around, heard some stories of this house was gone, but there was 2 brand new Harley Davidson motorcycles still standing, beautiful as they could be. And the woman in that house was in the bathtub and was through 75 feet in the air and landed outside, and she was still in the bathtub when she landed. But the guy that we saw where the trailer was, the tornado hit directly, it sucked. There wasn't a piece that was maybe the size of a sheet of paper where it went through all these pine trees, and that's where he was killed. The people that with the dogs told us that when they saw it coming up the hill, he got in an old 87 Oldsmobile 87. Him and his family rode down to the house, and when he got there, his family just got into the house, and he was starting in, and he started getting sucked back out. He said he grabbed a hold of the door, and it's like the movies. His feet went out from under him. He was flying, and he finally, when we went by that house, and you could see where the wall was blown out, where it was. So it was kind of interesting. And the good thing about that story was 2 weeks later, they had a story on the news that that dog was found after 2 weeks. As far as mentors on the department, I had several. The first one was Captain Phil May. When I had him, he was one of the first ones to teach me how to treat your people. Family came first. I hardly ever missed anything. You know, a lot of people say, well, I miss football games, I miss basketball games, I missed a dance. He allowed us to leave the station, and he could have gotten in trouble for it, but we could go for a couple hours to go see these things. And he influenced me. He taught me firefighting big time. But he was a family man. He believed in family first, then the fire department, where a lot of firefighters was the fire department first, then family. He taught me, you know, how to treat my family while I was a firefighter. You know, there was one story with him real quick. We were fighting a fire on Randolph Avenue. It was a church fire. And I always heard these firefighters going in before me without air packs and breathing the smoke and going at it. Well, he was one of them. He could do that. And so I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stand next to him. And so we went in, and I bet I didn't get 5 feet into the door, and it was heavy smoke. And we went to the window, and I listened to him. He was over there going, and I was over there gagging, almost throwing up. I mean, it was just bad. But I learned then, I used my air pack, let the toughness. Then I had, after him, it was Kay Pearman. When I was sent to 4, which I didn't want that assignment, but you know, at the end, I loved that assignment. But she was one of the reasons why I did. Again, she fought for her men. She fought everything for them. I know a story with her was, she told me about one time one of the chiefs came over and had my evaluation, and he says, I need to get firefighter Scarbrough to sign this where we can read it. And she looked him dead in the eye, and she says, Chief, you want him to print his name or do you want him to sign it? He said, I want him to sign it. He said, okay, that's his signature. And he had to take that back, and she fought. And then one other time, she actually wanted to give up some of her money, because at that time, the 2 firefighters that was with us, the driver and the other firefighter, they didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to do anything extra. They told her, we'll fight fire, we'll save lives, we'll do what we can, but we don't want to do anything. So I pretty much did everything. I did all the extra stuff that we're supposed to do. Well, when it come time to raises, we all got the same raise. So she went to the chief then and said, listen, this guy's done all this. These guys didn't want to do anything. Says he needs money. And they said, nope, he gets what he gets. She said, we'll take, because she got a fairly good raise. And she said, we'll take some of mine. I mean, that's how good a woman she was. And then lastly was my daughter went into cardiac arrest when she was a baby, 2 days old. And Kay was the liaison between me and the fire department. You know, one of the first persons I called was her, saying, listen, I'm going to Chapel Hill. She said, don't worry about it, I got you. And she actually raised money for me and my family to help pay bills. And you know, and we've been friends ever since. I just got to see her a little while ago. But yeah, she was one of my greatest captains I'd ever had, and friends. Then I had David Birch, and all these guys. It was about family. It was about human beings. It wasn't about them being the great captain and, you know, shine to the staff and the chief and all. It was, they cared about their people. They loved what they were doing. They loved their people. You know, we had a good time on and off the shift. We played golf together, but I trusted him. Anything he said, I would do because I trusted him. I knew he knew what he was doing. And again, he was a family man. He believed in family first. And that's when I really seen families come in together and enjoy each other at a station and knew each other and did things together. The wives of firefighters were friends. You know, the kids grew up together. That's when it started at Station 5. And then the last was Captain Cliff Oakley. Cliff was a man's man. I mean, he was He was a person that cared about you and didn't care. I mean, the man would tell you he got rode up 14 times in his career. And so, he wasn't too worried about administration saying this, that, and the other. And he fought a lot of times for us, for things. When they said they weren't going to do it, he would still stand up to us. And he was a family man. He loved his family. We loved his family. They were like my own. We did things together. Those are what captains should be. Not worrying about if, the chief is wondering if you got all the paperwork done and things like that. They stood by their men, and their men stood by them. I took what I learned from them and did apply it to it. I made sure that my men, their families came first. And when I first walked through that door, that's what I told them. I said, you might not always get to go somewhere because of circumstances, but if you have something with your family or your family wants to come and we have a good time here, that's what it's about. I said, because we could go out here on alarm and never see you again or never see me again. And so that was a big deal for me when I became a captain, that I was going to make sure that I treated my people like they treated me. Would I do it all over again, and why? Yes, in a heartbeat. I'd still be there, but because I felt like I made an impact on people. I saved lives. I lost a lot of lives, but I saved a lot of lives. I made an impact on the community. I was there to protect them. I felt proud to protect them. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a hard job. I tell everybody, I said, it's the best job I ever had in my life because it was fun. It was something I enjoyed. And
did you do anything different?
I don't think I would. I don't think I would do anything different. I think my career went the best way it could. Heartbreaking moments was probably when I lost Chip Severs. That was really hard. We were very good friends. I was good friends with his family. Again, it was all about family. That pretty much took about a year of my life away, because when he died, I pretty much took over making sure the family was okay for over a year. He had a troubled daughter that I took in several times and would talk to. And then Will Cavanis, again, that was a tough one to swallow. He was running a marathon, and it was his first marathon. He'd been best shaped guy you ever met in your life. And he was in Chicago running a marathon, and about 500 feet from the finish line, he fell over with a heart attack. And so they worked on him, but the doctor said the reason why they couldn't bring him back is because the adrenaline in him was the fighting force, and they couldn't bring him. And that was where I really learned how other fire departments take care of other fire departments. Chicago took us in. They chartered a private jet. They had to have him cremated because there was so much to get his body back, and the wife said that's fine. But we flew two guys up there, his best friends. They got a private jet, flew his ashes and the two firefighters back, and was met with a big assortment of trucks at Piedmont Triad International Airport. He was a good man. A real quick story with him was before he was even a firefighter. He was riding with me one day on Engine 5. I don't know if you remember this, but it was a bad thunderstorm, and we were going call to call to call. Well, we came up on Holden and Hobbs, and we pulled up, red lights and sirens going, and we started off, and this girl come around, and we hit her, and it was a major pin-in. We actually popped up on top of her car, drove her into a tree, popped off of that, and dropped down, and she was okay. She didn't die, but he wasn't even a firefighter, and he went through that. So it was an amazing, and he knew the girl in the car. Civilian wise, coping with death in the fire department with our own or civilians with our own is tough. But again, you talk about it, you sob and you have sorrow, but you also talk about the good times. With Chip Severs, every year they do a run to his gravesite, drink a little Jameson, and run back to the station. I mean, that's something that they do every year for him. But as far as civilians, I had two that tore me apart. And I had a firefighter, Don Hayes, called him Doc, Dr. Don Hayes. I was on the squad, and first one was 5-year-old girl, was in cardiac arrest. She was stiff. I thought she'd been dead for a long time, rigor mortis, and come to find out about 5 minutes into the call that she had been in an accident, and that's the way her body was, because I was wondering why she was still warm. And so we did CPR on her, and pretty hard, tried to bring her back, and she didn't. She died, and she was the same age as my daughter. And when I got done with her, that tore me up. That was my first death, pretty much. And then I had an 11-year-old that was hit by a car on a bicycle, and she died in my arms, and she was the same age as my daughter, and both times tore me up. And I learned real quick that I didn't, on that first one, I went to Don. I said, Don, is there anything I could have done different? Did we screw up? He said, no, we didn't. But just talking to him and making sure that, he understood me and he could give me words of advice helped me so much to get through some of these hard days. And, that's the piece of advice, talk. You got to talk about it. No, I was never in the armed forces. I had a choice, either get married or go to the Army, and I got married. I wish I missed the Army so bad. What would be a successful firefighter? Somebody that loves his job, is willing to do the extraordinary, somebody that's proud of what he does, and respects people in itself. This question here, what would advice I would give to a rookie class? And I've been wanting to say this to a rookie class my whole career. I've even tried to. I had a guy, Bobby Smith, one time told me, and this is basically for medical calls. He says, Tim, if you don't control your patient emotionally and mentally, you can't give them proper care. And that stuck in my head. So when I went on calls, they always called me the horse whisperer, because a lot of times people would be distraught, upset, and everybody wanted to rush in, do blood pressures and stuff. And I would usually walk up and just sit down and whisper in their ear. A lot of times I'd talk to them in their ear, and it'd kill the guys. But you've got to control them. You've got to get them calmed down. You've got to let them know that you're there to help them before you do blood pressures and check their vitals and things like that. And we don't do that. I've seen it too many times that they go in. And this is a story I have for that is, we went into this house one time, and this elderly man, I shouldn't say old anymore, but this elderly man and elderly wife was sitting on the thing, and he was complaining of chest pains. And we came in, we get our blood pressure and stuff, and it was high, and things just didn't look right. But he kept saying, I don't want to go to the hospital. I'm done. I don't want no care. And when they're conscious, you can't do anything to them. So EMS came in. He said the same thing. He wasn't going. He didn't care what happens. So I told everybody, we could have just got up and left, But I told everybody, just leave the room for a minute. And his wife was sitting there, and he was sitting there. And I kind of looked at him and said, listen, buddy, I sat down beside him. I said, I know you don't care. I said, I know you're tired, you're hurting, you don't want to do anything. He says, but see this woman beside you? This woman beside you loves you. more than anything in this world. I said, that's who you should do it for. Not for yourself, but do it for her. And he says, you know, you're right. You're right. So EMS came back in, took him to the hospital. She came by and brought me a card saying that he would have died if he hadn't went to the hospital. He had 5 stents put in, and you know, he pretty much shut down. So I think that was the proudest moment that I could have ever done, knowing that I just took that little bit of extra time. Well, I would almost say Kay Pearman. She made the difference in my life. Kay Pearman is, she's a strong woman. She went through a lot of stuff, you know, as a woman in the fire service, you know, and I was there with her. But she still cared about it. She still cared about the fire service. And she taught me values on and off the duty there that, you know, I still use as, you know, take your friendship seriously and treat your people right.
This is not a question, but
Health's been okay. I'm about 30 pounds overweight. The only reason I left the fire service is because of my knees. I think I'd still be there because I love the job, but my knees gave out and I had to have 2 knee replacements. So, but other than that, you know, mine's going. What would I want the Greensboro Fire Department to remember me, about me? That I did my best, that I gave everything I could for the fire service. I never backed down on anything. You know, I treated people fairly, and I think people treated me fairly to the most extent. You know, you do have some bad ones too, but that I made a difference in people's lives is what I'd like to. What would I want my family to remember me about? It sure ain't the money. You know, the same thing. I want them to be proud of me. I want them to know that, you know, raising them, that I raised them the best I could, you know, my know-hows, and that I was fair and loving to them, and you know, hopefully that takes them. I miss everything. I miss what I miss about the Greensboro Fire Department. I miss the camaraderie, the stations. I don't miss the administration and all that stuff. I miss a lot of the training. I miss the firefighting. Every day I hear fire, you know, I'm around Station 40 a lot and working around there, and I hear their sirens go off. I'm like a dog ready to run after them. You know, I want to get back on the truck. I'd love to get up to where I stopped at. I'd love to start right there and keep going. Oh, well, I do love this man. Let me tell a story about him. I was still in training, and we had to go and relieve the guys because I think they had to go to a funeral in High Point or something like that, and we were sitting at the table at Station 9, and I guess he thought he was going to get me. He stood up, acted like he started choking real bad, and somebody came around, done the Heimlich maneuver, and he spit out a bunch of potatoes and just started laughing.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.